Snow swept hard across the mountain pass that night, biting through the pines and cutting like knives against the skin. The storm had turned sudden, a white wall of wind and silence that swallowed the world whole. Elias Boone, the mountain man of Black Hollow, pushed his mule through the drifts, cursing under his breath. He'd seen storms before, but nothing like this. His beard was stiff with ice, his hands raw inside his gloves. Then, through the roar of the wind, he heard it, a sound no man ever forgets. A child's voice. "Help! Please, help us." He pulled the reins hard, straining his eyes through the curtain of snow. There, near a half-buried wagon at the bend of the trail, two small figures huddled together in the drifts. One was standing, shaking, the other still as stone. Elias leapt down, boots sinking deep into the snow. "Hey, girl! Over here!" The smaller one turned toward him, a frail little thing, maybe 9 years old, her cheeks blue with cold. She held something wrapped in a ragged blanket. "Please, mister," she sobbed. "My sister, she won't wake up. She's so cold. Can you bury her, please?" Elias's heart clenched. He dropped to his knees beside her. The bundle she held was another girl, smaller, pale, her lips tinged purple. Her little hand hung limp outside the blanket. Elias checked for breath, for a heartbeat. Nothing. The older girl trembled violently, tears freezing on her lashes. "She said she wasn't cold anymore," she whispered. Then she just stopped talking. Elias took off his fur coat and wrapped it around the shivering child. "Easy now. You're both coming with me." She shook her head weakly. "No, sir. Just bury her. She don't need me now." He looked her straight in the eyes, steel blue against frightened grey. "Girl, listen to me. I ain't burying nobody tonight. Not till I'm sure." He lifted both children, one living, one limp, and carried them to his mule. It was past midnight when Elias stumbled into his cabin, snow in his beard and frost in his breath. He laid the girls by the fire, stripped off their wet clothes, and wrapped them in wool blankets. The smaller one's skin was cold as riverstone. He rubbed her hands, her feet, whispered under his breath, "Come on, little one. Don't quit yet." The older girl, her name was Anna, she said, sat trembling, eyes wide with exhaustion and grief. "Where's your ma and pa?" Elias asked. Anna shook her head. "Wagon broke down 2 days ago. Papa went for help and never came back. Mama, she's with him now." The words hit him like a blow. "You been out there 2 days in that cold?" She nodded. "I tried to keep her warm. I promised I would." Elias's throat tightened. He'd buried promises like that himself, long ago. He turned back to the smaller girl. "What's her name?" "Lydia, Lydia," he murmured, leaning close. "You hang on, you hear me?" He rubbed her chest, breathed warm air into her lungs, again and again, until suddenly a tiny sound cut through the still cabin air. A cough. Then another. Anna gasped, covering her mouth as Lydia's eyelids fluttered. She's breathing." Elias sat back, sweat dripping from his brow despite the cold. "Told you," he said softly. "Ain't burying nobody tonight." Anna threw her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. "I prayed," she whispered. "I prayed God would send someone." Elias stared into the fire, his rough hands trembling slightly. He hadn't believed in prayers for a long time, not since the war took his wife and boy. But tonight, holding 2 half-frozen girls who should have died in the snow, he wasn't so sure anymore. "Maybe," he said quietly. "He still listens after all." Outside, the storm howled on. Inside, life had come back to a tiny cabin on the mountain, carried in by a man who thought his heart had frozen years ago. Morning came slow and grey over Black Hollow. The storm had eased, leaving the world wrapped in white silence. Inside Elias Boone's cabin, the fire burned low but steady, and 2 small shapes lay beneath his thickest quilts. Elias sat nearby, half dozing in his chair, rifle across his lap, more from habit than fear. When the smallest girl stirred, he opened his eyes. "Hey there, little one," he said softly. "You with us now?" The child blinked up at him, eyes pale green and confused. "Where's Anna?" "Right here," Anna said, sitting up beside her, clutching her hand. You scared me half to death, Lydia. Lydia tried to smile. Was I dead? Elias' breath caught. He cleared his throat gruffly. Not on my watch, you weren't. The girls looked around the cabin, rough-hewn logs, a pot of stew simmering, boots drying by the hearth. To them, it might as well have been a palace. Where are we? Anna asked. My place, Elias said. High up the mountain. You're safe here? Anna hesitated, glancing toward the door. You'll take us to town, won't you? When the snow stops? Elias didn't answer right away. His gaze rested on the fire, on the shadows flickering against the walls. He'd lived alone for years, ever since his wife and son had died of fever down in the valley. He'd promised himself he'd never care again, never risk that kind of hurt. But the sight of these girls, alone, scared, clinging to each other, made something old and buried stir inside him. Yeah, he said at last. We'll go when it's safe. But for now, you eat. You rest. Days passed. The storm trapped them on the mountain, but the cabin came alive in ways Elias hadn't known it could. Anna helped cook, stirring stew and asking endless questions about the animals outside. Lydia, still weak, drew pictures in the ash by the hearth, mountains, trees, a little log cabin with 3 people inside. When Elias saw that, he had to step outside for air. One evening, as the snow fell soft again, Anna looked up from her knitting and asked, Mr. Boone, do you have any family? He shook his head. Did once. Not anymore. Do you miss them? She asked gently. He stared into the fire for a long time before answering. Every day. But you keep going anyway. That's what living is. Anna nodded slowly, then whispered, That's what Papa said too. By the 3rd week, Lydia could walk again. Her laughter filled the cabin, light and quick like birdsong. But one morning, while Elias was chopping wood, she came running out, clutching a folded paper she'd found tucked inside her mother's old shawl. Mr. Boone, she cried, there's something written here. He wiped his hands and took it. The paper was worn and faded, but the words were still legible. If you find my girls, please tell Elias Boone of Black Hollow. I never stopped loving him. Elias froze. His breath left him in a rush. The name scrawled at the bottom, Mary Ellen Boone, made the world tilt sideways. Mary, he whispered, his heart pounding. Mary was your mother. Anna looked up, confused. You knew her? He sank to his knees before them, eyes burning. I knew her. She was my wife. The girls stared at him, stunned. Lydia whispered, Then, you're our papa? Elias felt the ground sway under him. All those years of silence, of believing they were gone forever. And here they were, alive right before him. I didn't know, he choked out. After the fever, I buried her. Thought you both had died too. He broke off, voice cracking. God forgive me. Anna threw her arms around him, sobbing. She told us about you. She said if we ever got lost to find the mountains, they'd lead us home. He held both girls tight, his rough hands shaking as he whispered, You found me, angels. You found me. Spring thawed the snow a month later. When they finally came down the mountain, the people of Black Hollow watched in disbelief, the lonely hermit walking into town with 2 smiling girls at his side. Elias traded furs and supplies, but when the sheriff asked who the children were, he simply said, My daughters. No one questioned it. They could see the truth written all over his face. Years later, folks would still tell the story of that winter, how a mountain man found 2 freezing girls in the snow, one near death, and how his hands brought her back to life. They said the girls saved him too, thawing a heart that had been buried under ice for years. And when people asked how it all began, Elias Boone would just smile, stroke his grey beard and say, It started the night a little girl begged me to bury her sister, and God gave me a family instead.